A lot of people seem to be quite confused about how to warm up. And in this video, I'm going to give you a very, very simple roadmap to warming up on any exercise at any time. So the first thing that you're going to do to warm up is you're going to identify what exercise you're doing. Okay, so that's step one. Identify the exercise. Step number two is you're going to pick a light weight on that exercise and perform it for, I don't know, 3 reps, 4 reps, 10 reps, something that's not particularly fatiguing, but that allows you to actually get a sense that you're loading the muscle you're trying to train. And then step number 3 is basically to add load as you drop reps, so decrease reps, right? So if you're doing warm-up sets with lighter weights, 10 to 15 reps, as you add more load, decrease the weight. And then basically just repeat this step until you get to your first working set. Now, this is going to sound like the most obvious thing in the world to a lot of you, but to others, it might sound like you're skipping a bunch of steps. And what I really want to address in this video is just the notion that one needs to foam roll for 5 minutes, stretch for 10 minutes, incline walk for 10 minutes, do sauna for 3 to 5 minutes, or really do anything that is completely unrelated to the activity that you're going to do. And so just to give an example, the other day, my last leg day that I did, I was starting with leg extensions. In the time between when I walked in the door and when I finished my last warm-up of the leg extension was about 5 minutes, okay? And the way that I went about this was exactly in this process. My top set on the day was around 250, 260 pounds. So the first set, I just threw a random light weight on there just to kind of grease the groove. And then I basically just incrementally added a little bit more load, little bit more load, little bit more load, barely took any rest between those sets. And basically just as the load increased, as I said, the reps decreased. And eventually, after a couple minutes, you basically just arrive at the working weight. Maybe if it's 250, you just do like one set, you just do a single rep just to feel it out, sort of primer set, right? But beyond that, why would one need to do those sort of unrelated activities, right? They don't really function as a bridge between non-activity and activity, at least in the specific way that we're trying to. And they're also not ways in which we can practice the skill that we're trying to do. And so a warm-up is, yes, it's this bridge, it's this sort of filling of the space between the rest of your life and training. And you could do that by going on an incline walk or something. But eventually, regardless of what you do beforehand, you're going to have to start an exercise at some point and start to add load to that exercise. So my question for any of you who are maybe like, this is too little or this is too simple, is why would you need those other activities? In fact, wouldn't it make more sense that you would spend more time practicing and honing in the skills that you're already going to do on that day? Wouldn't it make more sense that you wouldn't need, let's say, glute activation activities before you do leg press? Let's just like zoom out for a second and think about this. If you need some kind of muscle activation before you are doing an exercise that is supposed to activate the muscle that you're trying to train, wouldn't that then just indicate that there was something wrong about the exercise that you were doing, right? Again, the glute activation example. If you do glute activation before you're doing squats, wouldn't it make sense to you that you're just simply performing the squats in a way that doesn't activate the glutes? And shouldn't the exercises we're doing just in and of themselves be functional enough within their specific context to be the warm-ups? And shouldn't we not need other activities to necessarily prepare for them? And guess what? If we do need other activities, that might be fine, but that might also indicate something about the exercises we are doing. So let's pick my leg extension example. If I sit down on the leg extension and my knees are just screaming in pain for whatever reason, the leg extension might just not be the appropriate exercise for me at that given time for whatever host of reasons, and I might need to go do something else. But even in that case, I still go to that other exercise that might feel better and just start this process over. I identify the specific activity, I perform the specific activity with lower relative amounts of challenge, and then I work up to a point where I'm at the challenge for my first working set of the day. And the process sort of, in steps 2 and 3 shouldn't really take that long, right? Like again, if I sit down on a leg extension and I just put a really light pin on the first, setting there or whatever it happens to be, I'm going to be able to escalate load very, very quickly from warm up to warm up without needing very much rest at all. Like I pretty much take no rest until I start to get to heavier loads. And even in those cases, because I've lowered the reps, I'm not like really fatiguing myself. I'm just sort of practicing the motion. So I really encourage all of you to, in the next week, couple weeks, if you're someone who spends a lot of time doing a lot of non-specific activities, move in the direction of the more specific. Move in the direction of getting rid of those generalized activities and all that time that you might in fact be wasting between when you walk into the gym and when you start to train, and just try to remove that for a second and experiment around with whether or not this seems to work for you. And one really, 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 really important thing, and I think this is the thing that decides whether or not this works for someone, is how quickly you move through the transition and warm-ups. So for example, if you do that first set of really light leg extensions and you feel a little creaky, like that's normal, right? It's kind of like, it's like the quad equivalent of being asleep all night and then waking up and being like, I'm a little stiff, I gotta sort of move around, right? That's a normal thing. A lot of people assume that that just shouldn't be there the first time you do a rep. And so this is how people end up stretching their quads for 10 minutes before they sit down to, kick the leg extension pad. So when you sit down, like just expect for things to feel a little creaky. That's normal, okay? Not any sort of sharp pain, that's probably something else, but like just the general creakiness, the tiredness, the stiffness, those are all parts of the normal warm-up process. And so if you do that light set and you feel a little creaky, just redo the light set. Like just keep the same light weight, take, 5-10 seconds, maybe get up, walk around the gym once, sit back down, and just do the same weight again. And then every transition that you make from adding a little bit more load, a little bit more load, a little bit more load, just redo the weights if the set doesn't feel quite right to you, right? And make those micro adjustments. Every time that you do a warm-up, you are practicing the activity that you are about to do and that you're about to do with a lot more load and a lot more effort, hopefully. And so don't just treat your warm-ups as this like floppy activity that we're using to just sort of loaf around in preparation for the workout. Use it as an opportunity to hone in the skills of the day. Right? So if I'm going to go practice guitar because I want to learn guitar, I want to learn how to, play different chords and do different scales, I'm just going to pick up the guitar and start doing scales. I'm not going to like put a bunch of rubber bands around my hand and start like moving my hand around. I'm just going to start playing the chords. I'm just going to start doing the scales or whatever it happens to be, perhaps at a little bit of a slower tempo, a little bit more of an intentional sort of placement. And then once I'm warmed up, I can play more quickly, I can do the scales more quickly, and so on. And so hopefully the analogy is clear here, and hopefully this video introduces a very simple and intuitive yet rarely applied concept, which is just simply that the exercises that you're doing, they're fine to do for the warm-up. And just take your warm-ups a little bit more slowly, start lighter. Don't just throw the weight that you're gonna start with on the weight stack and assume that like, I need some other warm-up. No. Decrease the load, work up slowly, take a little rest between sets, add more load over time, decrease the reps as you get to your first working set, and that's a perfect warm-up.